finding the words while staying in your body. I think that's what it is that's making me so emotional.
I'm not just thinking about all the things that are wrong with me that I wish were different. I get connected to the parts of myself that I love that I think are really good.
Well, I was stuck between the podcast intro.
I just want you to
my
say
brain.
Paul.
I know what you wanted me to say. My brain got stuck.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Arid.
Paul.
And this is my amazing sister Margalit.
Hi.
And our sister Talia is off screen. She'll chime in, and we're having this amazing convo, and we're recording it. We're going to see what happens. I was just telling Margalit that I think she would make a fantastic group therapist. So we were just having a kind of an intense conversation, and you were just so grounded and so present. I'm going to cry now.
No, I think it's hard because it's something I've been feeling really connected to. I am not sure I'm ready, and I don't know when I will be for the more practical parts of actually getting there, of like school and the clinical work, and that part is hard to imagine with all my kids. Yeah, I've been
Finding the words while staying in your body. I think that's what it is that's making me so emotional.
And that's what I've been experiencing. That's what I wanted to talk about, because I think that it feels like all of this stuff has been coming together. And I'm probably jumping ahead and behind, but like I've been for years for
Great image. I
for
love
years
it.
for Yom Kippur, for like the tashlich, when you're supposed to like cast away sins and think about like doing better next year. For years, I just kept going back to like, I don't want to be afraid. I don't want fear to stop preventing me from doing the things that I want to do. And and that was very much, and it really only feels like it's hard because I for a few years now, I feel like I've been just kind of like taking away layers of my life and kind of getting to understand myself. And I keep thinking like, wow, what a big change. Okay, cool. And then like another big shift happens, and it's exhausting, but also exhilarating, because it feels like I'm finally kind of getting to that point where that like hold of the fear isn't isn't gripping me, and I'm able to just kind of like be me and just put things aside. And so what I was saying is some of the big, yeah, I could probably talk for hours, and probably have, about like the things that got me up to that, but like
but just like to think about that as like Latasha's request, where it's like I don't want fear to grip me,
because I felt like
is
that,
like that's so suffocating and so paralyzing,
and
and
that's
the voice in you that like wants to
it felt like it was the fear that was preventing me from being a better person. Like it wasn't like I didn't feel like I had these like bad things that I was doing that I needed to stop. It really felt like the good things I wanted to do, I couldn't access because
What
they were constricted.
when you were having these internal conversations while doing Tashlik about what was the fear saying to you? Like what when you imagine the fear that you're trying to let go of, what was it trying to protect you from? What was it saying to you?
Taking up space, I think, in one sense, afraid of doing something wrong. It was, I think, a big fear of like, well, what if I say the wrong thing to somebody and I make the situation worse? And it feeling like the choice of action feeling more scary than inaction. And so it's easier to kind of stay
when
passive.
action is more scary than inaction.
I mean, there's a
Yeah,
whole,
parallel.
I was just going to say, there's like, I mean, also like a whole field of study around that. How it's like scary, the idea of action. You make it,
Or like, because I mean, I remember thinking this too, like when it was like the vaccination, and like all of my kids are vaccinated, but like understanding that fear of like, well, I'm choosing to do this, and if there's harm, then it is my fault, versus, well, maybe I just won't vaccinate, so then I don't have to risk the like side effects that I will have then
Absolutely.
choice.
It's a
So that
cognitive like a cognitive bias, a cognitive illusion, but we perceive directly the consequences of our actions, right? We say something, it hurts someone's feeling. We do something.
Oh, good point.
But inaction has consequences that we just don't perceive because we don't see the link between not doing and
so in action
happening.
we don't, it's invisible, and in action we see the consequences, and in action it's invisible. Oh my god, with all my avoidance.
And when things are, and one of the other things I go back to a lot is like, you have the visibility piece, right? That when the work is invisible, it's easier. It's easier to forget. Like you have to do so much more mental work to be aware of the invisible things than the visible ones.
The iceberg.
it's easier to imagine the consequences of taking an action than the consequences of not taking an action.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not taking an action, you just stay with what you're doing, right? So,
which would really, if we wanted to get into like why I lived my life a certain way for so long,
well,
and like
pause for a second. I do want to say when just introducing Talia, Talia is also Dr. Lazarus. She has a doctorate in decision sciences, so she actually has professional expertise in this part of the conversation. She has professional expertise in a lot of the conversation, but like this is like her wheelhouse. I just want to like add that
I
in.
mean, I literally was talking about like its omission.
So Talia, you were telling me about the omission bias. Can you tell us? Can you just like give us like a quick primer, and then I want to go back to the Marguerite celebration.
Yes, it's you prefer not doing something over doing something. So you judge the harm of an action more negatively than the harm of not doing something today.
I think that we feel the agency. You need a cure for that. You need a cure for that.
No, I mean, I'm thinking about my patients who struggle with avoidance, and avoidance is like it takes such a long time to treat because at heart people believe inaction is better, and I really think
because better or safer. I think for myself,
safer.
But also safer. And the question I've been trying to put to people is be really specific. What is it keeping you safe from?
But I think that's also a cognitive illusion. Judgment. Because I feel like when people think about inaction as being safer, they're imagining that the status quo can persist. And sometimes action is what enables the status quo to degrade, right? Like we don't do anything and therefore conditions get worse and we suffer more. As opposed to we don't act and therefore things stay the same.
But which what I think also happens to build off of what Paul was just saying, it's a slower decline potentially over time. If you stay with the status quo, there's a decline. You're not seeing it as obvious. It's slow. It's more of a slow potential progression over time. Whereas if you take an action, it's this definitive moment where you're doing something and then you have a direct consequence right after.
And that definitive moment is the trauma moment.
And that's when your brain can pinpoint, and then it's like you can turn the judgment and the blame and all the negative self-thinking into that you now have agency and look at what you did, and feed into all these narrative stories that are negative that you've internalized.
This is so relatable to so many people.
And this is connected to one of the things that Arit and I have talked about a lot is I have this problem. I'm a procrastinator. And one of the connections between procrastination and perfectionism is you want to wait to make the perfect choice, right? You don't want to make the wrong choice. You want to only make the right choice. And therefore, if you delay, then the problem resolves itself. That's sometimes how procrastination serves a protective function. You just wait and you don't have to make a choice. And therefore, you're able to preserve the illusion that you could have made the right choice, that there was a perfect choice to make.
Yes.
But and also the illusion that you were capable of making that.
Yes,
that you don't have to ever challenge the grandiose that you believe like there's a version of myself that could have done the thing.
Everything right.
It's just time.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this reminds me of my friend's dissertation, but I should chat with him first about it before talking more here. But
I think you're always allowed to cite people.
We were going a little bit more cognitively, and Marguerite's body language shifted, and she.
I could notice, so that was just one thing that I just realized. I could feel my internal state shifting, and that this was an interesting conversation. I think it's really important and I have things to say, but it wasn't where my mind and body were earlier when we started talking. And so I began to pick up the my internal state changing and being like, no, I can't speak as well or stay as engaged in this topic. That's not where my mind is going right now. So I just wanted to ask if we can table this and then go talk about something that's really important to go back to.
I'm so excited you were that attuned.
And I think that's what I wanted to talk about because I've been, it's just so hard because I just think of everything.
Okay, so let's go back. So you, just to remind you, okay, so your tashlich, your prayer, your desire, your request, I want to be, more released from fear. And it almost reminds me of the year I went actually through chemo and didn't want to do tashlich because it doesn't feel like it was like I couldn't even do anything to apologize for almost.
Yeah, which I think is a thing I felt, but I also was like, but I always want to be better. And I felt like this was holding me down. I think the reason I'm getting stuck is kind of what we were saying before with the different points is I can think of different points or extended periods in my life that kind of led to the significant changes. And it's hard because to talk about where I am now, I want to kind of discuss all of those, but that is a whole other conversation. So I'm trying to decide like where to jump to.
I mean,
one of the turning points in my mind was back at the end of last year reading Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. And that kind of introducing me to I guess more like a Buddhist approach to, and she's a therapist and a Buddhist. And so it felt like a very like grounded, based in science. But there was a lot of the concepts that resonated with me. And now I'm getting self-conscious. And it made me want to start, I guess, doing like a more formal meditation. Like my therapy, I've been doing like a few minutes of like mindfulness meditation, and through like a series of events, I got into this one meditation group that I've been able to participate usually at least once or twice a week through either in person or online. I'll fully admit that I'm struggling to have my own practice at home, but I've talked with a teacher about how like that doesn't have to be the goal, especially because it already is. I feel like what's hard is
yielding benefit to you.
yes, no, I can feel that. I think I had articulation before, and I can feel that I've lost
You want to go into your body for a moment and tell us what you're like, what are you feeling in your body?
Yeah, I think that maybe before I was very really excited to say, and I felt like I had the words for it, and I feel like I've lost that moment, and so I'm kind of sad and not sure if I can get the moment back.
I feel like you were in your chest, like in your body, not like in a tight chest. You were like in your heart, and then you moved where we all go in the back of our head for that more cognitive, and a little bit more like energy here, where it's like we're trying to be cognitive. And I just want to name that, like, for us, for anybody watching, we have these conversations all the time, and we've been trying to like remember to record them, and we're still in the process where recording them. We're still self-conscious enough where we can tell we're not exactly like, we're a little bit on, and we're hoping we can stop doing that so you can actually like get the actual emotional tenor of these conversations, because I really think that what Marguerite's describing is so relatable and so helpful for what people like so helpful for people, because it's so like so many people just really experience like, you're saying avoidance. It's not even like status quo. It's also this wish that somehow status quo will get better on its own, and that powerlessness and how much you have to cut off from yourself. And you also have to cut off from your body, because if you connected to your body would tell you, hey, whoa, this is not what I want. This is not, whoa, stop.
Yes.
And so like the body piece is so relevant.
Yes. And so I started working with my like current therapist probably about a year and a half ago, maybe a little more. And I will just say, like, because I had so much I want to talk about myself, and then also I have like 4 kids who are wonderful but also can be a lot for their own reasons. Like my therapist suggested going to 2 sessions a week. So that way I would have enough time for myself and my kids. And so I've been probably for a year and a half now almost been doing on average like 2 sessions a week. And so I can really feel, and I'm very lucky, and that like the therapist I have is like a wonderful match with me. Yeah. So one of the things I think that I've been coming to a lot, I think it's also I just get overwhelmed because it's just like,
there's like so much.
Where do you
so much.
start?
Yeah.
And there's also a little bit of the like, I'm doing the like Buddhist meditation classes, and there's a learning component, and I talk a lot with my therapist, but I am not a scholar in either. And so I get a little self-conscious about like if I'm going to be like misrepresenting or misremembering some of the terms.
You're the world expert on Marguerite Lazarus.
That is true. But I think
I was thinking of her classics background. I think you have, which I think
Marguerite does not want to be considered an expert.
You have a solid real liberal arts education, meaning you are actually good at analysis and synthesizing. Yes. You are a reliable reporter, and you are using these constructs. And when we talk about it, one of the reasons I wanted to record it is I really like how you put things into words. Like, I feel like you've gotten much better
at summarizing.
Yeah, but summarizing in a way, it's like what's my patients tell me I do for them. They'll tell me it's 30 minutes. I'm going to keep talking in this moment.
Yeah.
So Marguerite has several of her kids coming and asking questions that they know the answers to.
That was what she needed, something specifically, because we're missing one item, and the other item is in here for like a charger for a specific device. So
yes, but yes, very creative, playful children.
Yeah, so just like I feel like I've forgotten a lot of the details of like things that I've learned, but I do agree that I feel like the essence of how to kind of think critically and then
Well, say them in a way that's
mean,
accessible.
Studying the humanities, I think, is a habit of mind. It's a process of thinking.
But you're going to say habit of mind versus mind. That's also true.
And so I don't think like, I feel like you've always had that. You've never lost that.
Yeah. But when I was more in like a shame, feeling small space, I didn't really believe it. And I felt much more aware that like I don't have the graduate education. I don't have the memory. I couldn't sit down and write a paper the way that I used to. And so the shame about what I focused on, because it was a much more of like a deficit model in my head, prevented me from really feeling. And that's another, I think, one of the big switches of not being deficit based. I'm not just thinking about all the things that are wrong with me that I wish were different. I get connected to the parts of myself that I love, that I think are really good. Like, and then feeling more like happy to be me and like more,
because if you're being
in
small,
my body,
you're compressing yourself. And then there's not enough room to roam inside and like really
because ultimately
enjoy and explore and get to know.
Because I think it's all like predicated on this like feeling of I should be smaller. I don't deserve to be here. I don't have value. I shouldn't take up space. And so you can't really embody.
Wow, I even
yourself.
saw your face change and do like the surprise look, like your face did the weird facial expression, saying the thing that you used to believe that you no longer believe because you don't believe it anymore. That's why your face. That's why your face.
And so it's interesting because like there's a lot of people I talk to. Like I have like several discords where I get into so these conversations, and I really enjoy talking to people who like I recognize are maybe in like a stage of life that I was in before, like not like age-wise, but just like maybe in a relationship or with their relationship with themselves. And just it resonates because I remember having been there, and sometimes very viscerally, depending on what else is being said.
You remember having been there in your body.
Yeah. And before I would have, cut that off more. And so
I just want to hug you.
I can't wait to get a hug from you. I know it's hard not. That's one thing I realized. I think sometimes I'm closed off. I talk to you because I miss you. Because it hurts so much.
Have all these experiences.
Yeah, and so just like realizing, and so and knowing, right? Because Paul and Arit were really there for me a lot when I couldn't really imagine things being differently, and I felt very stuck in the status quo. And there was a time when they would just tell me things that I would just make me feel more shut down because I'm like, but I can't make those changes. And so I think I have so much empathy when people maybe know that they're stuck and they're not happy, but they don't feel capable of making a change. And it's not an easy thing, but I always go back to it's one step at a time. The awareness is the first step. Like you can't really have the change until you start to fully believe what is happening. And then you might decide, well, what do I want and what comes next? But like, so that's why it all ties in together, like the mindfulness that I'm like focusing on. I keep going and feeling like I'm not learning huge, giant changes about myself the way that I had before, but I'm getting into these like little nuanced differences that still feel like it's like a magnified response of just like in one of the meditations, like somebody was talking about like a visualization that they use. And I was like, oh, I do that too. And somebody was getting defensive, like, but if the visualization helps, like, why are you criticizing them for it? Like, not to me, it's another person. And it clicked. It's like, not that the visualization is necessarily bad, but if you think that you're in your body during the visualization, that is different from being aware that like I'm not actually feeling the breath in my body. I'm just imagining something. And so just knowing that.
Oh, you mean the difference between visualizing something and feeling it in your body. And so that's really, so when people do guided meditation and therapists do this all the time, like let's do breathing. You're right. It's almost like visualizing what a thing is going to be like before you experience it and you do it and it doesn't feel like you actually did it because it lives in in like the thought bubble space, and not in the body space. I like that. Oh, this is all my patients are going to be hearing about this.
I love visualizations. Like I've done some meditations that are really powerful using different visualizations, but like it feels like they are powerful when when I'm like grounded in my body and they help me connect with that. Like I did one a few weeks ago where I was like crying, and one of the things I wrote in my notebook after was like crying about how much I didn't know my body and that visualization. But in this specific instance, it was just like I was supposed to be feeling the breath in my body moving in and out. And I think that I was just kind of like imagining a person's like arm going up and down. And so the arm up and down was like representing the breath in and out. And so I thought I was doing the flow of the breath, but I realized I wasn't actually. I thought I was in my body, but I wasn't.
It's almost like this weird version of it's like referred pain. It's like you externalized your breathing to your hand.
Yeah.
Which is like a more distant, it's like, okay, it's in your body, but it's more distant.
And and so like once I thought about it, I was able to like start to feel actually like how it feels within me more, but it took a little bit of of time to get there, and just again just realizing that it's not necessarily that we it's very hard. We can talk again about like there are times where we can't be in our bodies, right? Like if you're in like a painful experience, or we've discussed like medical trauma type of things, you don't really want to be completely present in your body and feeling the
Sometimes
intensity of pain.
dissociation is helpful, is something
Yeah,
you said earlier.
but I have used dissociation without
Yep.
realizing it for a
Well,
long
because
time.
I think the truth is like and it's going to sound like it's a backhanded compliment, but I think it's actually true. You have great strength in your ability to dissociate. Like you have incredible power in your ability to not be in your body. And that is something that you've used to your advantage. Like
She's given birth to twins.
I did get meds for that one though. Which
you still did it. You still carry them in your body.
That is true.
So like one thing that I'll tell my patients, and I think for myself is true. I think dissociating reflexively is a problem.
Absolutely.
Dissociating by choice is a strategy.
Well,
yes.
That's what I was thinking about when Marguerite was talking earlier about the way they relate to meditation. Is I think that there's a difference between basically there's that part of what you're really realizing in these meditation exercises and therapy work you're doing is what it looks like to actually be in control of your body, right? Like what control actually feels like and when it's grounded, right? I think part of your experience in the stressful situations that you've had to live through, you wanted to hold on to control, and the things that you were trying to control were not actually the full spectrum of control, right? The dissociation is like walling off your body, and you can't wall off your body and still be in control of it in the fullest sense.
And then these also give me a time to practice, because there are definitely times when I've like gone to the meditation and realized my mind is wandering and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do and then just reminding myself like, but my body is doing this, right? Like I don't have to overthink it. Just the practice of practicing is already beneficial. Like my cells are, can unlearn, because that's like, again, another thing, like the whole, like the way like our body holds on to trauma making sense, and me kind of getting like despair of like, but there's always a trauma anniversary. Like, how can you ever move past it? And starting to think about how my body can also remember the good things. And that helping me like open up to like absorbing more and just like, like being in my body and learning how to be grounded. And also something that I think that Paul made me think of that like, has come up in both the meditation and therapy is just like the empathy towards myself. And because there is just so much reflexive self-judgment, and kind of just like when I am struggling with the dissociation in the past, especially just to have empathy for myself, and to like to stop, to take away that inner voice. When again, a lot of people are aware they do it, and they're like, it's like, well, would you say that to your best friend or your kid? No, but I'll do it to myself. And just
see, I get to this place where I don't know how many people understand what I mean when I'm saying this, but I think that kind of self-judgment is a form of almost like narcissism, where you're judging yourself as if you could be perfect.
But I think, I think the underlying thing is like goes back to this fear that if I am not perfect, I don't have value. And I think that it's like this underlying like lack of belief in your own like worth of existence. Like
that's so I think that's something that, in honest, like I think I don't relate to that in a way that has helped me be happy, but it's harmful in my ability to like help other people in that moment, because like that's my assumption. And I just feel like our language of worth and value, because they're capitalistic, but it's like I'm often saying, like, I don't believe in deserve, I believe in desire, right? And I'm like, you want to be a person, you are a person, like that is enough, but for all the things you want. So you must have been brainwashed to believe that you're supposed to have value,
which is why,
and then you don't have value because you're a shitty tool.
Yeah, which is why I think that you have to like do the therapy of like unpacking, well, why did I start to believe that I don't have value? Like what were the voices and the messagings that I heard that like made me feel so small and bad inside? And so that's why like I wish that I had more of like the professional kind of like language and kind of credentials, but I do.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I want you to have the credentials so you can help more people.
Wait a minute. That's actually invalidating this whole conversation, right? Because the experience of being in your body is not something you get a credential for.
Oh, like, there is no. But
I mean, go ahead.
But your language is
not validating my own self, but in terms of like being able to help other people, it feels like it would be easier to do in a formal way.
No, I guess part of what I'm saying is I'm literally saying like me not having had this experience it makes it harder.
Oh, no, I agree. I was just thinking back to the earlier, like, I would be a good, great group therapist, but I can't be a
But my
therapist
point
without.
is, you actually do have the language. The
Yes.
language you are using. I mean, I think
That's
I
why Arit wanted to record this in the first place,
Yeah,
because she
no.
liked the language that you were using.
and I
Oh,
think that
right.
in a professional setting, I would not give you notes on your language is perfect.
Oh, yeah, I think it's like I mean, that's one thing I'm actually really pride myself on, is that I have been learning to articulate. I remember really, like, growing up being really, like, admiring Arit's ability to articulate, especially with, like, arguments with our parents, and it feeling like a huge thing where,
Practice.
like,
Practice.
practice. Well, yeah, and I couldn't, yeah, and I think big part of it was like that fear of like, well, my voice isn't actually worth saying. I could be wrong. All of the reasons, all of the fear to keep myself small. And it was a really groundbreaking when, like, a few years ago, I realized I was able to start verbalizing. And a lot of it, again, it's so hard because I'm like, I do think that I have a lot of really cool things to share. And because I have
You
been
do.
there and I can understand some of these pieces in a way that you haven't, because I've had all of that. It's, yeah, again, it's still hard to admit, but like when
I've
you
done different
know,
transformations. I've done different emotional work, which I will talk about more at some point. And I've done a ton of, like, the way that people talk about their emotional self is how I think I talk and relate to my body, right? Like, I'm in learning to name, parts of my digestive system recently, and just naming it. I'm like, oh my God, just naming it helps. I was going to the bathroom yesterday and I was like, of course naming it helps. I'm literally telling my patients naming it is like the first and the most powerful kind of intervention.
And you were saying earlier, Reed, that one of the things that a patient had said to you recently was that they were really thankful for the life experiences you've had and how that informed the way you were as a therapist with them. Obviously, Margalit,
If you're watching, shout out, you know who you are.
Margalit, you have had a lot of really
yes.
significant and impactful life experiences that are different from Arit's and are very important to the
Oh,
information and practice and presence that you have to give.
I think that that's what I was thinking, though. I think because I've had those experiences, but then I've also had this huge influence of Harit, how it's really helped me kind of like, it's like I can bridge between like some of the things that Harit knows really well, but doesn't know necessarily how to get there when you've been in this other place. And I'm like,
Absolutely.
and
I
feel
can't
like
appreciate the stuckness piece. I also just got self-conscious. People are out there like, oh, if you touch your nose, it means you're lying. And I keep touching my nose. I just realized
my nose is itchy.
The tip of my nose is cold, but the rest of me isn't. So I'm just gonna hold my nose tip for a second so I can stop
Thinking about it.
I have an open window in another part, so I think that I'm like feeling
and,
the
like, the rest of me is perfectly temperature, but my nose tip is just really cold. So I can
You need
stop
a hat.
a little nose hat. I feel like those must exist. Oh my God, I had a dream about jewelry that could also be like winter accessories. Like
A cozy nose ring.
yeah, with like a nose ring that has like a little flannel on it. That's not what I dreamt. What I dreamt was my earrings, like having earrings that were like so big that it actually turned into like a scarf. But I like this like nose ring with like a little blanket for your nose.
You should design jewelry that has like attach points for fashion accessories. Like you hook the scarf to your nose ring. Though that probably has some safety implications.
That's what I feels like there's a big safety, like if you pull your ear, like gets yanked.
Yeah.
But you gotta design safety mechanisms, probably.
Yeah.
Like breakaway nose rings.
Medical stuff in my hot flashes. It'd be kind of hilarious if I got like, I need like a fan for my cheeks, but a little hat for my nose.
I mean, being in your body means recognizing that different parts of your body have different needs.
Yes.
And then
Yes,
going
yes,
back
yes.
to, again, like the things that we practice with like the meditation of just like the learning that pause of like being able to scan your body and like, and I think that I started this like even before I was as conscious, like with my kids and noticing like, like when one of them was really little, like they had a lot of meltdowns and like there was a lot of sensory stuff. And they could be very angry. And I remember though once being like, if I can't get myself to stop yelling at the kid, how can I expect them to stop yelling? And but like realizing if I tell myself that in the moment when I was already angry, it wasn't going to do as much. And so I had to
Yes.
actively tell myself that when now I understand more, my body was regulated, when I was calm. And then when I did get angry, it was easier for me to access and pause and then be like, oh, I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to like say what I want and like not let, and again, like this is like kind of stuff I think we talk about a lot specifically in like the meditation group of just like the pausing and the noticing, and like it's not that you want to repress what you're feeling, but kind of like being in your body and kind of, but also
Well, you
learning
contain it. So
yeah,
like when
that's
you
the other thing
name
with it, containing.
feelings,
Yes,
your brain
yes,
actually calms. Like there's neuroscience about this. Like your amygdala calms itself down, the part of the body that controls like basic emotions and fear. And I'm when I'm teaching my patients new emotional regulation techniques, I try to remind them, practice this when you're not in distress. There's no way you're going to do it when you're in distress. You're not going to be able to reach for it. What you reach for when you're in distress is what's automatic to you. It's usually what you've seen in childhood, what patterns you've been in, what has, like you don't have the resources to stop and like figure it out. So you need to practice it when you're calmer. So when you're upset, you can then
yeah,
access it. And it's a game changer.
yeah, which is what
The example that you gave, Margalit, I think is actually really illustrative because about parenting, because there is such a huge difference in terms of intent and context between why can't I do this, right? Angrily. Why can't I do this?
yep,
Versus why can I do this, right?
yeah,
Curiosity, examination. And the voice that you were hearing the first time it occurred to you to think, oh, wait, I need to come back to this when I'm calm. That's actually like, it's a good insight. Like there's value there.
yeah,
But the first time it was coming to you, it was actually just coming to you as criticism in part, that
probably,
was
yeah,
what you were
yeah,
getting.
You're right. You know what? You're right. I think when we ask people to change, and I can think about this with my own physical stuff. The first time, a lot of times, the first time feels like a criticism. You're totally right.
I
It's
feel
like,
that way strongly.
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
what's
yeah.
wrong with you? Feeling like a phrase I
Like,
remember a
why
lot hearing
can't
as
I
a
do
kid.
this? Or I think
With the implication being
I
you
should,
are a failure, why you should be able to do this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't think of it as
No, I know, fine.
no. I've never really thought of, I don't understand how people can be failures. I talk about this a lot. They've heard me talk about this a lot. So I've never thought I'm a failure, any of that. That makes no sense to me. Like failure doesn't modify human. But that sense, that sharp feeling of, um, I'm supposed to be able to do this. I'm not going to get, and no one's going to help me unless I can do it in this particular way, and then feeling powerless and stuck, and then you want to avoid, because if I'm powerless and all I'm going to feel is bad, I want to stop that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah,
you
and that's
know
one thing again. Oh,
it's like the opposite of feeling empowered to do it, but we feel
yes.
like we're supposed to say we're empowered to do it, but it really helps to name that moment of shame. Oh, I'm
Yes.
feeling ashamed, but I can't do it already.
Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, because again, that was another thing I think I really started doing with like my current therapist is like just that process of naming and really naming when I was being self-critical or judgmental or feeling shame, because I also got really good at being sneaky. Like I would not usually be like very direct, like, oh, you're a horrible person. I know some people do that. I didn't usually do it, but I would, yeah, it was like, oh, you should be
You mean
better.
sneaky with yourself?
Yeah, sneaky with myself, like sneaky with my being self-critical, because it would have been obvious to me maybe that like I can't be that mean to myself. So, but it would come in like, oh, you should be better. Like, why can't you also do this? So it would be a little, yeah, you'd have to do the extra step of like, I'm expecting me to be able to do this, or comparing myself to some fictional person. But of course, it's a fictional person, so they are able to do everything that I can't
Oh my
do. And
God, the fictional person. So many of my patients have a fictional person that's like it's like functionally their nemesis.
yeah,
Where they're like, I should be able to do, and I'm like, who is this person? Because if that person exists and they're that great, then they're just going to be nice to you. They're not going to judge you.
yeah, yeah. Another helpful thing
And
of
they
like,
probably haven't had the same struggles you've had.
yeah. Yeah, and so, yeah, just, like, the being nicer to yourself, and again, that was something I also realized, like, there were times when I didn't know how to have this self-compassion, and I think that's, again, I go back to, like, if you're taught it as a kid, it's easier, but if you didn't really absorb it when you're younger, it can take a lot longer to unlearn the negative patterns, and I've had Paul and Arit especially, and then, like, my therapist, in retrospect, I was like, they were holding the self-compassion for me until I was able to hold it for myself. And that again is like why community and like having a therapist that you feel comfortable with, I think are so important, because you can't. And as it goes, again, taking that judgment, like there are these skills that you shouldn't, like, why should you know them? We are taught them, right? Through the body co-regulation or through other people. And so it makes
And
sense to
our
know.
society is set up to literally disrupt how we evolved to co-regulate. So we are act like there's tons of benefits. We live longer. We can do things that we can have leisure and not just do, search for food. But we are actively, all of our co-regulation is actively being disrupted on a regular basis. So, like, for example, touch, we are designed to co-regulate through touch and not like by ourselves and alone. So when people feel ashamed for not knowing things, that's a huge, huge part of it.
Yeah, and so that's why I think, again, like, the decreasing shame of just like, "Okay, you don't know this, but, like, why should," like, right, just like, again, like,
Yeah,
next
that's what I mean
question
by
if you
like the
don't know it.
perfectionism or the grandiosity.
There's no shame involved,
Right,
just
right, right. Who's like,
but you
why
have
do you
to
think
realize
it's
that you're
right?
feeling shame in order to kind of take a step back and not kind of dig lean into the shame versus, something else. So, yeah, so I think that that's, being an important part to, like, being able to start changing is to, like, start being nicer to yourself for the times in which you weren't nice to yourself before, right? Like,
And if you really struggle, imagine someone who's been nice to you in any small way, and just imagine that for yourself. Like if your parents were mean and you got a lot of mean messages, think through your life. Was there anyone that was nice to you? And how did they tend to you and what made that feel good? And can you tend to yourself in that way?
and I will say, I know I've talked to people who, like, didn't maybe have an experience like that until, like, they were an adult, and it was actually so
Mhm.
overwhelming that they can't think about it without
Yes.
crying. Because so this can be a very, like, intense thing, and maybe you actually, what if you can't think of that? You know, like, I mean, I'm just like,
No, 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 no.
it might be
This
hard
is
to
where I feel like
imagine.
I need your help in gapping that bridge where I'm like excited. I'm like, oh, look, here's the thing you need to move. And you're like, wait, stop.
You can get stuck even there.
You can get stuck even there. Maybe that's the title of the.
Well, that's also like this is just like an aside, but like that's also where disability frameworks come in, right? Because you can't always perceive what's an obstacle to other people.
Yes.
And that's one of the
Oh my God,
things
that's
that
my
you
life.
struggled with in your disability journey is like people not perceiving things that are obstacles to you that are like profound obstacles, and they're just like, oh, it's just 2 blocks.
Like I had to ask a neighbor to repark their car because they didn't give me enough room to swing the door open. And when I get out of the car with the door not open, I was like, well, how many more bruises on my leg before I actually asked the neighbor to repark the car? And they're like, a super healthy 21-year-old, they appear to be. They don't have a framework to understand that I'm like gonna be bruised because of how they park their car. And so you're right. Like I love that definition. I'm totally gonna be using this also of like, okay, so people cannot always predict what is where other people can get stuck. And the less people can predict it, the more shame you're gonna feel about it.
Mhm. Because it's so obvious and immediate to you, but no one else sees it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you feel more isolated and you're sort of alone.
Yeah.
And I think so to go back to that moment of being stuck, so there's a thing, so I call it, I talk about this a lot too, your receptive capacity. What is your ability to receive the good stuff? And it's like if your cup is a thimble, because that's what you have been conditioned to receive of good stuff, and somebody pours you a shot, it
Yeah.
is gonna spill over. You can't
And make a giant mess.
and make a giant mess. You will feel crazy. You will feel cuckoo. You might feel gross. You will feel dysregulated. Part of you is like, yes, I'm thirsty. I want this. And the other part of you is I'm in a mess and I'm drowning. And so, like in therapy, you build up the receptive capacity. I'm really good at this. I've grown. I have grown this man. The first time I hugged him, when he laughed at me, and when I used to give him compliments.
I thought you were complimenting yourself. I thought you were saying you have a great capacity to receive love,
Oh,
which is true.
oh yeah, I was complimenting myself, but yeah, I'm really good at that. But what I was going to say is your capacity to receive love has grown, and I'm proud of myself for helping that happen.
You've done a lot to structure it.
Where I would give him compliments, and he would say to me things like, "Oh, you have low standards," which everyone who like was when we were dating, and it's hilarious because my standards are insane. But like, there was one day where I was filled with too much love, and I made a list from A to Z, and I wrote out 100 things that I like about him, and he was able to hear the whole list. Like when we had started dating, there was no way he was going to hear what functionally was, 50 or 100 things, positive things I liked about him. He could not have done that.
Still not a huge fan of this part of the conversation.
Yes. We have to acknowledge his New England Irish Catholic
another
anyway.
yeah. So I'll pivot a little bit into like I think,
but in private you can do it.
That helps of just yeah, like remembering that like change is a process and that it takes time. Like one of the things that I hit up
and
again,
health is a process, not a static thing.
Yeah, like a lot of these things are dynamic, and again, and I know I've talked to my therapist, like even like with disabilities too. Like everyone thinks people want it to be static and clear cut. They like visibility. They like things that are static. They want things to be simple. Human beings are a lot more complex. Like our needs change, our abilities change, and so again, that's why I keep going back to like the being able to notice and name and the mindfulness of okay, well, in this moment, what am I capable of? What do I need? And being able, and it is exhausting. Sometimes I'm tired of noticing. I'm tired of naming. Can't I just exist? And
Yes,
the
so
more
you
that I
do is
do it,
you're naming I'm tired of naming.
yes.
And then you move into the space of I'm tired of naming, and it
And then it's
lifts you up, and then you can be in the present because you can
yeah, yeah. But while you're resisting that, like that's what
resisting it makes it go on forever. It just hurts.
yes. And that's what I think. And I remember that there was something that like both the read and my therapist had said about like if I feel like what am I scared about being obliterated or annihilated by my emotions, and how like even when I would feel maybe a lot of grief about something, there'd always be this little bit of me holding back because I was scared if I fully feel it on some level, it felt like I would just lose myself, I'd get destroyed. And intellectually it doesn't make sense, but like it's really how I felt and I didn't even know it. And it wasn't until I kind of started to understand and kind of push through that I even had understood what they meant. And so I think that is the other complicated thing about these conversations is I think that some of the language just doesn't make sense until you have the context for it.
And
And
the
so that's why I think
experiences.
yeah, and the experience. That's why I'm hoping that I can help provide language that
Can I
help
go into that a little bit more? Okay, so when I was in school, I had an amazing supervisor, and she used to do these like retreat. And one of the okay, I might be confusing this with a retreat a classmate went on, but at some point in graduate school, I got to the idea of doing retreats where someone is asked, do something at 100. What does it look like if you give an actual 100%? And I don't mean like run really fast, but doing a thing. And it's actually really hard to go from 90 to 100 of giving yourself. And I think for me, the thing that I do most at 100% is love, And like that is a thing where if you ask me, am I loving with all of my being? Yes.
Yeah.
It is my favorite thing to do. I think it's something that you liked about me from the beginning. And it took me years to realize that was a good thing to love about myself.
It's one of your world-class talents.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel it, right? And I'm filled with love. And for anyone who knows me, I only say about 1 out of 20 nice things I think about people because I would overwhelm them. I'm always thinking more positive things because there's not enough time. Like as you're talking, Margaliti, I'm just remembering you as a little kid and remembering just how like quizzical and curious you were. And, you and I were always really close. And I'm thinking of all those conversations we had about, you feeling distant from people, but you could feel close to me. And I could always imagine you. I just think of you as like an earth goddess and how you carry your energy. And the reason I wanted to record today is like, you are like tapping into your earth goddess energy and there's like a groundedness. And like a few years ago, you were like not in your body. And now you're like a goddess. And I say that in like, I have a very specific word of what I
Not
mean.
a few more minutes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Like the goddess is chief
Mother Earth.
The goddess will go hand over the necessary.
Yeah, Mother Earth has to go mother because she is a mother and the children of Mother Earth need her. But as she's gone, it's like so emotional for me to see, my baby sibling. I love them so much. I loved being a big sister.
You talked about it constantly.
Yeah, when we first met, he was like, "What's up with these siblings that she won't shut up about?" And part of it was that I was like another parent to them. And they're so to see, I never knew that they would be my friends. I never knew that they would grow up to be my best friends. I wasn't expecting it. I was just like loving them because I love them. They were wonderful. And so the more like it's just been really amazing to see you grow up, but to see you come into your own power. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, and that's
like,
the thing I think of that, like,
me
I've also
so
gotten better at
happy.
like thanking you, but like acknowledging the ways in which I helped make it happen. But
Yes.
remembering like in college being on the phone with you and starting to kind of like be aware of our dynamics where it was like always you're the big sister. I'm treating you like an authority. I'm not treating you like a person and making a mental note of like, I don't want that. I want you to be a person.
And I don't want it either.
Like,
I don't like being the authority.
But like, yeah, and that being really helpful for me relationally.
I like being an expert, but not I like having expertise and influence, but authority is more complicated. But anyway,
because
and personal relationships.
It wasn't treating you like a whole person.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I want to do that because
and she would project onto me what she thought the judgment was. Whatever the judgment she was scared of having would be, you externalize it and then you see, oh, this person is thinking this about me. Super common thing.
That went on for
almost all of you are doing it.
But I remember like in college starting to be like, oh, right, like I want to ask you questions. Like I want to hear more about your, right, not just talk at you or like, like make it be a conversation, which is funny because we were thinking one of the kids was in here earlier, like, well, you like
You were trying to
just
teach the
say something.
5-year-old the point of a conversation. And what did she say?
She's like, well, you talk and then you stop and then you talk more. Like she just wanted to have a chance to say what she said. And I'm like, well, you know, it's the ebb and flow of a conversation because we're discussing something, not just like I have a fact I have to say or I have a question.
Or
So
play
yeah,
with me a game.
and it's also like I have grown up like part of it like very introverted. Like I feel more extroverted and talkative right now, and I think as I'm in my body, it's easier to tap into that energy. But like growing up, and I think of this a lot. Like Ari gave me like an assignment to write about Friends in fourth grade, and I just couldn't do it because I just didn't. It was just
It was
incomprehensible.
too advanced. It was too much. I didn't even know how to. I mean,
Yeah,
I was a teenager at the time, so like but
but like yeah, the concept.
Let's also exercise some self-compassion for Arit, the teenager, trying to teach things to her fourth grade sibling.
Yeah.
Which
I was like, we had this whole. I had like conversations with her about like, I'm never gonna lie to you. Building trust is important. I think I might have used some culty techniques like doing trust falls with you, which I later had felt bad about. I mean,
they do
the treats.
They do trust falls at like management retreats.
Yes.
I don't think cults are the only ones.
Okay, well that makes me feel a little bit better. But like it was really important for it, like for that, And I think the reason that I can see you doing group therapy work, which I am much worse at, is in your body. It feels like exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. It's because it is exactly that.
That's really interesting.
And your kids are way more demanding than a people's in a group will be, because most people in a groups will not just, play the emoji game, play the emoji game. We
and
love
a question
so
that I've heard multiple times before, but I didn't respond in the way that they needed to know that I heard.
Right.
I think a lot of this is like a lot of parents experience, and my kids are on the more persistent side, and there are 4 of them. And so, yes, it can be a lot of, and that's why I have a lot of thoughts too. I probably will need to wind down to like, I mean, it sounds like
I think we're getting close to, I think, wrapping on.
But just like realizing how that also helped made it harder to attune to myself even as an adult. Like I hadn't learned how to do it. And then when I was trying to learn, I still hear their voices. Like my body instinctively wants to attune to them. And it takes more effort and time. And I think
we should do a whole separate video on attuning to yourself.
But just like noticing how it's hard because their voices are literally in my ears, but also like, and so that being something.
But I think this is actually a compliment both to the children and how they're maturing and how you've been growing and how you've been managing this whole process. This has been like an hour of recording, and you've had a couple short breaks, and the kids have done it. You've done it. And that's a capacity that they've developed and that you've helped them develop. Like it's progress.
This is good too, because with summer coming, like I want to be able to continue some of the stuff I do in there, and but yeah, one I know I had a shame piece come up that I want to like say it to release it, because I think I have a lot of shame. It's gotten better, but it's still there a bit about like not having more friends, not having like a bigger social circle that I feel close to. And some of that is I think that I am very particular in like what will make me feel close to somebody. And I think it's just really hard for me to find the people that I click with. But that is separate from like I've just felt a lot of shame. And so on the one hand, I've been very grateful to my sister Ari and like Talia and like Paul. Like I feel like my sibling group has grown. And so they've met my kind of like socialization, like need and energy thing. So I'm very grateful that I've been able to kind of have such great relationship practice with Arit. Like, so there's still a little bit of a shame that I haven't been able to do it with friends, but I actually have a friend now that like we were a little close, but I feel like it was like a weird time in our lives, like when she lived in my city. And then a few years ago, like I think I was starting like very, very briefly on like some dating apps, but it like made me think about other people. I just like emailed her if she'd want to connect. And then we started talking about every 2 weeks on the phone, just like for about an hour. And it's been really great because like we've been able to have some of these conversations about friendship and like about like what we need or want, and to just like be able to apply like, okay, it's not just that I can do this with a read. It's just, again, you have to find, I think, the right person that works for you. And unfortunately, maybe also fortunately, some of us have a harder time finding those people because we
should totally do a separate talk on that too. I just want to name the sun has shifted behind you. And so your shadows on your face are different. And so anybody watching, I just want you to know, like, they're just dark shadows on your face for a while, and it doesn't actually reflect your face.
Well, but also a warm glow.
Yeah, a warm glow, but it also, yeah, there we go. But also making shadows, like beard shadows.
Okay.
You're
Yeah, it's harder
not,
for me to see because
yeah,
it's like,
yeah, it's not what you look like at all. And I just I feel guilty because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna make people look at this.
Well, you're the cinematographer for this.
Yeah, I'm screwing up completely. I don't understand lighting yet. I did get so anyway.
another topic I could talk about is like once I started like thinking about embracing being queer, I also feel like my standards for presentation and like having to look a certain way
Yes,
changed drastically and also made it a lot easier to be in my body because I
yes,
wasn't comparing.
yes,
So another, yeah. See, we have so
yes.
much stuff we can.
I'm
much
so
stuff.
excited about this. I was gonna name, it's really interesting because I've actually been feeling some shame about not being doing as good as keeping up with my close friends who are not my sisters, you know? And so I feel like I used to have a lot more close friendships and harder for me to manage with all my medical disabilities and helping raise the nieces, the nibblings, 'cause there's and being there and being there with you guys. So, you know, it kind of, to just take a quick curveball, we're not going to go into this topic, but it's kind of like what I have seen of anybody that was raised female and sex, no matter, maybe two or three exceptions. Every woman I've spoken to has just decided no matter how she's doing it wrong. And I think that there's something about that with a lot of areas of life where we just, no matter how we're doing it, we're doing it wrong. And that's like not gonna make us happy or make our lives more robust or bigger or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like we can, yeah, go off onto that and go into
Mhm.
like historical, political, cultural, but yeah,
Yes,
not.
yes, yes. All right. This has been amazing. I don't even know if Talia's still there. We caught her in the middle of doing stuff.
Hey, yeah, I've been listening. I've been cleaning and listening, it's been a great conversation.
Okay. I know that we'll get Talia in on some of these conversations, you know, and like literally we do these conversations as part of our life for fun.
Yeah, that's why it's like, yeah, I'm like,
So
like
not
this
just
is
like work
like,
professional convos, like this is how we go through life because we're like, ooh, let's name it. Ooh, let's have more language. Ooh, and then we use it and it's really fun.
It does happen organically.
Yeah. Yeah. The inorganic part is remembering to stop and record it. So if you're watching and you've watched all the way through, which, you know, I don't know if anyone's actually going to do that, but thank you. Let us know, put comments in and let us know what you want to hear more of. We have so many topics. Also, if there's anything that we've talked about that you feel like sharing or like posting about that, you know, that you feel like you can relate to or things you overcome, feel free to post that as long as you're comfortable knowing it's, you know, a public forum. It feels icky now to say like and subscribe because it's been like, it feels wrong. Like I'm desecrating the conversation somehow.
Well, I'm glad you said it because I was just thinking about cultural models and I want to infuse more humor. So I was going to say smash that like button, but
I was
That's
gonna
a little
say
bit better.
my kids have gotten like if I take videos of them doing stuff, they'll be like, "This is this." Like if you like, you know, so they're too young to be on the videos, but in the ideal world, they would just pop in to say, "If you like this, like and subscribe." And
Oh my
that
God, that would get so many views.
yeah,
They're
they're a lot
so
more adorable than
cute.
we are.
To get little 5-year-old twins to just be like and subscribe. Um, yeah. Well, or we could do like a bit of like, you know, you're in your body and you're paying attention. What does your hand want
I
to
just
do?
need like
Your
2 more
thumb
minutes.
wants to click on the like and subscribe button.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah, it is gross. All right. So in conclusion, now that I have desecrated this beautiful and sacred conversation, thank you, Margaliti, for talking in a way that thank you for letting me record this. Thank you for all the growth you've done.
Thank you for being.
Thank you for noticing. And yeah, and yeah, thank you for taking joy with me in disability because I am taking a lot of joy in the and also yeah, so I really appreciate it because I think I spent so long and there's still the part of me that's like, am I actually making sense? Am I actually as articulated and helpful as I
Yes.
think? And so
Yes,
like I really
absolutely. Yes.
appreciate that
Yes.
like,
And
you
your
know,
energy, I feel like sometimes, you know, and Talia and I've talked about this because her capacities have also continued to grow. But a lot of times I'm in situations where I feel like I'm holding the emotional container of whatever's happening. And I can feel you holding with me in a way that is so cool. It's cool when you do it. It's cool when Talia does. It's just like really amazing.
and I'm also glad because you really did have an
Mhm.
undue burden like for so long. You were the only one doing it and there was a lot to
To
hold.
hold.
Glad that you don't have to do that alone. I also wanna feel like throwing out, like, I think Arid is a lot happier all the time, you know, like, I definitely am still in this progress of, like, I'm feeling very animated, energetic, and good today, but, like, a couple weeks ago, I was feeling a lot more pessimistic. And so like I just want to say, because like, we did this in a week. I don't know. It does feel like everything I'm doing is getting more cohesive and integrated, and it's easier for me to stay grounded. But I feel like I just wanted to like put it out there that like again,
Mhm.
it is a process, and that like I am learning to enjoy when I am. And just for like, if there is anyone who is actually watching this and is having this feeling, doing that, like, well, that's not me, I can't do this. Just the reminder of just like the flexibility and just way that we change, and that
And then,
it's not.
and being present means not being as future focused. And so
Yes.
you don't have to promise that this is how you'll feel tomorrow. Because I think
Yeah.
I
And
interpret
and to
most of
not.
your smile at her as like, why is Marguerite being hard on herself?
In
Or,
part, yeah.
and I was
But
like,
then the way she finished the sentence, it
exactly.
wasn't actually
It,
self-criticism.
Yeah.
exactly.
And
People need to know that, like, I stay in happiness much longer, I think, than most people. But that doesn't mean I don't also experience other negative emotions at the same time. And it's been harder since the inauguration to get back to this baseline. But that sense of joy that I really want to help more people feel more of the time, like it's a process to have that be your baseline. But you can't get there without moments. And sometimes those moments are
yeah.
like a part of a second, and then they're like a few minutes. And then
And
it
just
grows and it grows until it becomes days and then weeks and then months. And it doesn't mean you don't have bad days, but it's like it becomes more of what your life is about.
and just being present, like when you have it, and not, because I think what used to happen more is that I'd start worrying about too much about when it's gotten again. And maybe this brings me back to like the impermanence, like one of the concepts we talk about in the meditation, and like again, my sense of self, which is also like where it feels like the meditation and the therapy have really been and maybe
Dovetailing.
well, it was just, I mean, yeah, well, just I'm just like, will I be able to not go on for too long?
No, the
But
other
just
thing is not only we do this for fun, but our conversations are long because we keep
we always
going.
say we're gonna. It's true. We always say we're gonna
We
hang
have
up.
this process of being like, we're gonna hang up. Paul's like, okay, good, we're done. And then an hour later, we're not
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
be you
ready to
guys.
be off
We
camera.
Yeah,
won't do
you're
that
like,
because
I'm done. And we're like, wait, but we have another point. Like the sun rays now are giving you like
A halo.
a halo. So now
it's
you're like
yeah.
haloed with shadows on your face, but totally haloed. And I'm kind of liking it. This is not a filter. This is the sun.
Yeah,
Um,
I have a rational, I just like, sorry, I need some. Yes, you can go. You don't need to ask permission. I don't know if
all
that.
right,
But
Dr. Reed. Oh, one more
oh
thing.
no, it just sorry, is it okay if I go back to one of
Of
the
course.
original things with the therapy? It's the way that I relate to my sense of self. And I know that my therapist has talked about like internal family system. And so we do a lot of parts work. And it feels like it's been overlapping really well with like when I've done like the meditation classes, and they just talk about, oh, well, there's the not self. Like we like to cling to these parts of ourselves, but that's not really who you are. And it's a sense of, well, who am I? And finding this way of just like of experiencing, like feeling how I have changed over time. And so there are parts of myself that are hard to recognize from the past, or that like are familiar, but they don't feel like me now. And so like coming, like feeling more cohesive as I understand that those are kind of like changing parts of me that are part of me but are not like me at the core, and kind of finding that core self that is just like, what values am I connected to? Like
Okay.
how do I know what is my
No. I had a thought. When you ask the question, who am I feel like therapy helps explore who and and meditation helps explore I and am.
I think I will have to think with that, but I
Right? Like
think
what am means, what it like,
but yeah, it just
and the therapy explores the who and the what and the why and that, and then the I. Both sides are exploring what is the
is
self, how we
yeah.
relate to it, what comprises it. So maybe literally when you said, who am I? I'm like, wait, that's it. That's therapy and then meditation.
Yeah, and it's like, and I feel like, again, I feel like I've talked to you about like the desires, right? Like you don't deserve desire, but like, but yeah, like for me, it feels like it's becoming the like like we use the for the parts, like either like the bus driver or like the head at the table is like the voice that kind of like knows how to filter out all of like the clamor, and to know like what is actually best for me or for this situation. And so I think that that has also been a huge source of my strength, because there's less of that like ego danger of like right, like I don't have to be as afraid of doing something wrong that's going to reflect that on me, because I'm not holding on to this part that is me that might be as more fragile, or that I'm afraid reveals some deep dark truth about me, if it's like, or it's just like, no, like the core self, it just yeah, you can't target it the same way, and that gives me stability and more freedom be myself, and I might start, I feel like I want to start crying, but I'm also like, it's been enough. I need to go like eat something and tend to my body. But yeah, like it's just been really, really powerful. And I can even like just see it like socially when I'm with people and I'm able to be in my body. And again, there are times when I'm not, and just taking out that judgment makes it so much easier. But again, it's a process, and it's
I think the
cyclical.
power and the strength of that feeling that you're describing right now is what made Arit want to record the video. I think she heard that in your voice, and I think you were expressing it without words, and that's what Arit was tapping into, and that's what you were feeling.
And because I feel it now and I want to share it because I am excited, and I really like, and with Arit, I would love for more people to be able to tap into that part of themselves. And like, yeah, like I think the work that Arit does is amazing. And just like seeing how, like, I would love to be able to help people like that. And it would
You
be
will.
nicer.
You
Yes.
will.
Yeah.
I don't really doubt
I
it.
like
You
if I
will.
can do this indirectly, right? Because I do not have the
Yeah.
time right now.
We're gonna
So
keep doing this. This is too great. We're gonna keep doing this.
no, it makes me really happy because
Yeah.
I
That's perfect.
just, yeah.
And by
like,
perfect, I really mean like just exactly what we want it to be.
So maybe you like Charmed so much because it's the business model you want to have
The sisters
Sisters?
working together.
as a collaborative to make the
No.
world a better place.
No, but it's what you hate
You were
about it.
supposed to laugh. Don't
Okay,
take it so seriously.
sorry. Sorry. I'm right now.
As
I'm right
someone
now at a
who's
loss for
currently,
what, Talia?
I was going to say, I mean, it's just funny because I'm currently rewatching Charm for the umpteenth time.
So am I. But yeah. But I'm in a lost girl moment. I got to meet two of the actresses in a Zoom today, and I'm still like, whoa, they were so sweet and amazing. So right now I'm like between show ethos. But I see what you're saying. Sorry, my mind is slow. Having sisters, and we're gonna change the world together.
Yes.
Yes, by that I will take
And
that.
you make a living doing it.
That would be amazing. Because then we can spend more of our time doing this, which is what we're doing anyway. But all right, we're gonna actually stop for reals.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, like Arit said before, please like let us know your thoughts, your responses, your reactions, questions you might have. 'Cause, like, obviously, I really like talking about these things, and I would love to do this again. I'm sure we will do it again. But yes, please interact with us as well, because we like this to be the dialogue with all of us. But like, we're also doing this for other people to be a part of it as well. So
yes, I'm
Dr.
Reed.
I'm Paul.
I'm Marguerite.
I'm Talia going off.